This is part two of the shir for Friday. My videotaping cut off at 44 minutes. I'll try to complete a little bit. I believe we were in the middle of talking about the Russia, and the Russia had no faith, had no belief that keeping the mitzvahs had anything to do with freedom. And that's what we say, Ilu hayasham lo hayanigal. Had he been there, he wouldn't have been redeemed. Because the reason why God took us out is because we kept the mitzvah of Pesach and the mitzvah of Mila. That was the down payment, the first two mitzvahs that we kept. We undertook 49 days later to keep the rest. It is interesting, if you like to play a little bit with gematria, that Russia is a Reish, a Shin, and an Ayin, which is the gematria 570. Reish, Shin, Ayin is 570. Shinav, Shin, Nun, Yud, Vav, is 366. If you subtract Shinav, 366, from Russia, you get 204, which is the gematria of Tzadik, Tzadi, Dalid, Yud, Kuf. You can do the calculation yourself. What it means is that the Russia is really a tzaddik. He's really a good guy, but right now he's angry. Right now he has hostility. But the moment you get rid of shinav, his teeth, how do you get rid of teeth? How do you get rid of somebody who's biting at you? You don't bite back. It takes two to argue. If you don't argue back, you don't yell back, because if you yell back, the two of you are just going to be trying to outshout each other. So we don't yell back. We just look at him and we're sympathetic, we understand his feelings, but we'd speak to the Sheni de Elishov. We say to the small child at the table, you should know that he feels it's not important to do the mitzvahs, but had he been there in Mitzrayim, he wouldn't have gotten out. We would have gotten out, but not him. It would have broken my heart if he wouldn't have gotten out. I love him and I want him to come, but it's not the way he thinks. It's not just the freedom, it's accepting Hashem and Hashem's mitzvahs. And hopefully when you speak to the Sheni de Elishal about the Rasha, and you speak about him sympathetically, and you don't argue with him, and you really show that you really do care about him, that's the way that you get rid of Shinav, you get rid of his teeth. And he stops biting at you, and he stops trying to get you back, and therefore he comes out to be a tzaddik. It's interesting that the Torah actually speaks to 4 different children that a person might have, and you have to educate each and every one. But for the Chacham is a pasuk in V'eschanan, and there the Torah says, "V'amarta lebincha," you should tell your son the answer of Avodah Meinu. In Parshat Bo, when the simpleton asks, it says, "V'amarta Elov," you should say to him, speak to him, tell him, "B'chayzik yad hitzianu Hashem Mitzrayim." Hashem took us out with a strong hand. Even the Sheni de Elishal didn't ask. It says, "V'gadato levincha," you should tell your son. But for the Rasha's question, where it says, "Moha avodah zayis lachem," it says, "V'amartem." It doesn't say, "V'amartem aleim," you should say to them. Because if the Rasha is hostile, you can't speak to them. So it says, "V'amartem," you should just say. Some have explained you should say it to yourself. When somebody speaks with hostility towards Hashem, towards mitzvahs, towards Torah, you need to repeat to yourself what you believe in. V'amartem, you should say, Zevach Pesach with Hashem, it's a korban Pesach Hashem. Reinforce your own faith and don't flinch in the face of the challenges of others. In the end, hopefully, the Rasha will come around, and that's why in the Haggada, the Rasha is placed next to the Chacham, because he's really a Chacham, but he's a Chacham with attitude. The next of the 4 sons is the Tam, the simple one. Mahu Omer, what does he say? Mazot. To be honest, the question of the Tam is also found in Parshat Bo, but he's not asking about Yetzias Mitzrayim. The Torah at the end of Parshat Bo talks about the mitzvah of Bechor, that if you have a firstborn son, you do a pidyon haben, you redeem him for 5 shekel. You have a firstborn kosher animal, it becomes a korban. If If you have a firstborn donkey, you redeem it for a lamb and give a lamb to a kohen. And the Talmud wants to know, mazot, what's this all about? But we explain to him, Marta Elav, you say to him, B'chozik yad, Hotziyanu Hashem Mitzrayim Mibeis Avodim. It was with a strong hand that God took us out of Egypt from the house of slaves. And at that time he killed all the firstborn of the Egyptians and spared ours. And that's why we have, to commemorate this, we have the mitzvah of Bechor, the firstborn son, the firstborn kosher animal, and the firstborn donkey. How do we know that when the Tam says mazot, what's this? Maybe he's also asking a hostile question, like the Rasha, who said moha avorazot lechem. What do we need this for? Maybe he's also asking with hostility, mazot, what's this? But you can tell that it's not asked with hostility from the answer, because we're giving to him, v'amarta elav, we speak to him and we say to him, we explain to him. Obviously, if we're explaining to him, it means that he had a serious question and we're giving him a serious answer. The same goes for the Sheni de Elishal, the one who doesn't know how to ask. It says, at psachlo. If he doesn't know how to ask, so there's no question. But you have to introduce him to the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. And the Pasuk says, V'gada levincha b'yamahu, you should tell your child on that day, lemor, saying, Ba'avur asa Hashem li b'tzeisim b'Mitzrayim. When you say Ba'avur it's because of this. You point to the matzah, you point to the morah, you point to the mitzvahs, and you say, because of these mitzvahs, that's why Hashem did for me when He took me out of Mitzrayim. And again, the question is, how do you know that the Sheni de Elishal is just a simpleton? Maybe he's just disinterested, he's hostile, he's mad. But sometimes when somebody's mad, he yells at you. Sometimes when somebody's mad, he doesn't talk to you. So maybe the Sheni de Elishal is somebody that just doesn't want to talk to us. The answer is, you can see it from the answer. Since we're explaining to him, we're saying, it looks like you're talking to a good child. But the good child just, he's not inquisitive, he's not... So we try to whet his appetite, we try to spark his attention. And we say, you see this, you should know that this matzah, this mortar, and at the time of the Mikdash we had a Korban Pesach. These were the instruments that led to our exodus. These are the things we did in order to get out. And since the answer is a nice answer, evidently the child is a nice child. It's important to ask questions because our minds are formed by our society. And our society is not always a good society. Our society has various ideas that are not necessarily our ideas. So then sometimes when you learn things in the Torah, I've always said the sign of maturity in a student is when his questions start to change. Instead of when we learn something, he says, this makes no sense. He says, I don't understand this. This makes no sense is a statement of an ignoramus. I don't understand this is a statement made by somebody who has an inquisitive mind. He wants to understand. The way I understand things, I don't understand this. Can you explain this to me? Can you make it make sense to me? And we try. We try, because in the end, the ways of Hashem are straight. The ways of Hashem are good. We're not, chas v'shalom, doing brainwashing. There's no brainwashing. There's only laying it out in front of you so that you can make choices. We're laying it out and showing you, look, this is how God understands things. This is how God made a world. This is what God taught us. And think about it. And think about it long enough. You think about it long enough, you'll start seeing that this really does make sense. So these are the four sons, and a person has an obligation to teach each and every one. Whether he has a chacham, and he thinks to himself that the chacham might know more than me, so then his obligation is to show him how the Seder is run. If you have a Rasha, the Haggada teaches us not to yell back, not to shout back, but to be patient, to leave him here at the Seder, and talk to the Sheni de Elishal, telling the Sheni de Elishal not to be influenced by him, and make sure you yourself are not influenced by him. And the Tam, who has a simple understanding, so you have to explain to him according to his simple understanding. And the Sheni de Elishal, we have to try to whet, W-H-E-T, to whet his appetite, so that he also starts becoming inquisitive and asking and understanding. So many times when students ask questions and they really they ask, they really want to know, they're not being hostile, and you explain something to them and you see the light on their faces, now I get it, now I get it. The thing that seemed to be incomprehensible is actually very good. By the way, the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim is called Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. There are many ways to say. There's Amira to say, there's Ladaber to speak, there's Lahagid to tell, and there's L'saper. L'saper is to recount, but that's not a good word. The word sapir is a jewel. The word sapir is a jewel. There's a pasuk in Tehillim, Hashemayim misaprim kavod kel. The heavens tell of the greatness of God. If you look at the heavens, you look at the universe, they don't only tell the story of the greatness of God, they twinkle, they make the story of God shine and give it a luster, they make it beautiful. That's the meaning of l'saper b'yetzias Mitzrayim. You've got to make the words sparkle. You've got to make the story as real as you can. And every generation, b'chol dar v'dar chayav adam liros asatzmai ki'ilu yotza mitzrayim. You have to imagine as if you went out. So therefore, it's the obligation of the person who's learning the Seder to somehow relive it, to tell it in a way that is l'saper. Make the story twinkle, make it come alive. I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom Menucha, a Shabbat of strength. I have been in contact with some of our students, and I'm amazed at the strength that they have and how much they've grown during this period of time. They're doing things multiple times far beyond what they had done when they were in school. And those not yet, please attach yourself to those that are. Try to light the fire, light the spark, light the strength that all of you have. Bring out the potential that's within you, so that when we come back and look at each other and say, I had no idea I had this in me. I had no idea I was able to do this. So Bruchim to you, be blessed, be healthy, have a Shabbat Shalom and a good Chodesh, Chodesh Nisan. Nisan is the month that we learned that just because something was in a certain way doesn't mean it has to stay that way. Mitzrayim was Mitzrayim for 210 years and it didn't have to stay that way. And this situation now is also a situation which is like this for now, but it doesn't have to stay that way. It will be better, hopefully soon, and we'll look at each other and retell or recount what we accomplished during this time. Shabbat Shalom.